Now, we got to give credit where credit belongs in this case, and that is with President Trump, who first called the media, right, the enemy of the people. And, it's interesting when you think about President Trump because sometimes he says these things that certainly the media tells you to think are outlandish, but then later they turn out to have been true. And I think it's amazing. It reminds me of being at the Federalist Society Florida Lawyers Convention a couple of weeks ago and hearing a special interview with Don McGahn. Remember White House counsel Don McGahn?
Right.
And I tell you what, he had some really interesting things to say about the president, most of them positive. In fact, he didn't say anything negative to my ears about the president, which would go against the media narrative that, once he gets a chance to testify, he's really going to open up on all the bad things the president did. Well, actually, if you listen to Don McGahn, it sounded like he was a pretty big fan of the president. And what he said that really stuck with me is the president is one of the fastest thinkers that he has ever met, that he runs through decision trees faster than anybody Don McGahn's ever dealt with or ever represented, and that he's extremely decisive, and that he sometimes gets to these conclusions that you think, again, right off the bat, you think that can't be or that's not how it's going to happen. Well, over and over and over again, he turns out to have been correct. So Don McGahn was singing the president's praises about his decisive and fast thinking and his ability to kind of run down the decision trees and think, well, if I do this and they do that and I do this and they do that, what's going to be the end result?
Yeah, a lot of people believe that he goes ready, shoot, aim.
Well, apparently he's ready. He doesn't need to aim.
Right.
He's already there. He just thinks a lot faster than many people, and people aren't comfortable with that. And they say, well, he's making decisions without thinking. No, he's just thinking a lot faster than you are. And don't be upset about that. Admire the man's mental acuity, right? That's what you ought to be doing in that situation. Well, he called the media the enemy of the people. And now here we are, we're finding out after 3 years of the Russia hoax and then the Ukraine hoax, we're finding out that, the media is the enemy of the people. And Devin Nunes, congressman from California, who we really like on this show, who's actually led a lot of these stories. I mean, Devin Nunes was one of the first ones to figure all this out 3 years ago. He was on Laura Ingram's show last week and talked about the media assassins. And basically, he thinks that the Republicans and Trump supporters ought not even talk to the media. Listen to what he had to say.
The most important thing that the president has done, of all the things that he's done are very important, but he's finally outed the media. The media in this town has been corrupt, and it took somebody like Trump to finally bring them out of their shell to where now they'll just openly go out. They'll tweet about it late at night. They get drunk. They send drunk tweets out, and they're vicious to him and Republicans. And I continue to try to get our Republicans to wake up in the Capitol. We should not be talking to the mainstream media. They are assassins. They're working for the other team. You have to fight, and part of that fight includes not saying stupid things and cooperating with the media who are really working for the Democrats. It's such a key because we're already at a disadvantage with the tech companies.
Think about that. And, of course, he goes on to say stuff about the tech companies and how involved they are. And we'll get to some of that when we talk about Iowa. We won't be able to cover all of it in all the detail that we'd like to, but we'll put you onto some names and some additional things that you can be researching on your own to find out what really happened in the Iowa caucuses. But let's stick with the media for just a minute, right? Let's look at the lineup because you talk about slanted. I mean, last week was probably one of the best weeks in the history of the Trump presidency. Last week was a great week for President Trump on many different levels, and we're going to get to some of those throughout the show. We're going to talk about the State of the Union. We're going to talk about some of the court cases that he beat, and we're going to talk about some of the other stuff that happened last week that's positive for President Trump's administration. But after that week, let's just look at the lineup of the Sunday shows that happened yesterday. And, the Sunday shows are where a lot of people get their summary of what happened this week. So let's look at the lineup on ABC. ABC's Sunday morning show this week, Democrat presidential candidates Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg. On NBC's Meet the Press, they had Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders. Okay, on Face the Nation on CBS, they had Buttigieg, Sanders, and Lindsey Graham, as well as China's ambassador to the U.S. And we're going to talk some about what he had to say later in the program. When we get to our Out There segment, we start really peeling back the layers of the onion on the coronavirus. But how about CNN's State of the Union show? They had Buttigieg, Sanders, and DNC chairman Tom Perez. And then how about Fox News Sunday? It was Buttigieg. So, basically all they had on was Buttigieg and a couple of other Also candidates, because, of course, the media narrative wants you to now settle on Buttigieg, and they don't want it to be Sanders. And we'll tell you some about that. But they had nobody from the White House. And one of the best weeks of his presidency, they had nobody from the White House. Now, another issue that's coming up soon, and Devin Nunes had some stuff to say about this on Maria Bartiromo, who is one of the solid reporters out there on her show, Sunday Morning Futures. He had some stuff to say about accountability, and it's a question in a lot of our minds. Is there going to be any accountability for the Russia hoax that occurred? And listen to what Congressman Nunes has to say, because I think it's pretty encouraging.
I believe we're going to get accountability. I believe Durham's going to get to the full story. You see what the president is doing. I've been saying for a long time that the National Security Council that's there at the White House, 400 and some people, he would be best to take all of those people, ship them across the Potomac, quarantine them, get them the hell away from the White House, because we know that a lot of the leaks for the last 3+ years have been coming from that National Security Council. So the president really needs to only have Trump appointees that are close to him in the White House, because we know they're talking to the media. And look, that's really what's caused this problem. It's been the media. The legacy media in this country, they're not doing their jobs. This whole Russia hoax and Ukraine hoax, they were in on it from the very beginning. They've refused to talk about just how wrong the Democrats really were. You have to ask yourself, why is that? At some point, you have to understand, they're just part of the team. They're part of the socialist left. There's no other excuse for it.
No other excuse for it. The Democrats and the media have an alliance. The media is on the side of the socialist left, on the side of the Democrats, and that's what we've seen. Now, speaking of accountability and whether or not we're going to see any, the Gateway Pundit over the weekend is reporting that the word on the street from qualified sources is that former deep state crooked cops are going to be arrested this week. Now, we're not going to hold our breath here on this show, because we've had so many disappointments and so many promises that haven't been fulfilled. But, you know, Lindsey Graham, and he's one you can't completely trust, by the way, as we pointed out many, many times. But Lindsey Graham went on the Judge Jeanine show over the weekend and said half the people behind the Russia investigation are going to go to jail. Now, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing if people like Jim Comey and Andrew McCabe and maybe even John Brennan, you know, the CIA director?
Never going to happen.
You think it's never going to happen. I kind of lean towards the fact that it's probably never going to happen. But goodness, isn't it a fun thought to have?
It's a nice thought.
Isn't it a nice thought to have that there's going to be some actual accountability here? Well,
a little bit of balance.
I got to say, I'm encouraged by what Devin Nunes, Congressman Nunes, had to say about it, because he said he thinks there's going to be accountability. And, you know, if you look at his track record over the last 3 years, everything that he said has been right. Now, the media won't tell you that. In fact, they'll tell you it's all these conspiracy theories and that he's been wrong. But if you actually look at the evidence and don't just listen to what the supposed authorities tell you to think about it, but if you actually look at the evidence, Congressman Nunes has been right every step of the way, and he was right from the beginning. So when it comes to people that we're going to listen to, Congressman Devin Nunes is one of those people. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.